This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the one, the only, Brandon Swanson.
Hey.
And Brandon, we are back. Had a great time. You're actually the only one this week that I've not talked to about this yet, but we had a great time this past weekend. Mark got married. Congratulations. This has just been the congratulations week to Mark, as he's not doing anything for us, as he's enjoying himself in St. Kitts. Well, should be ending his time at St. Kitts sooner, as we're recording this later in the week. But we had some good fun at Mark's wedding last weekend.
Yes, congratulations to Mark, and that's very exciting. You know, good for you, buddy. We've got about at least 10 years till we have the next one.
Yeah,
and then that one will probably be Sean. He'll just pass up Dave, Ricky, myself, and Johnny. That's okay.
Yeah, that's just the way it goes, though, right?
And who cares?
Yeah.
But yes, Mark's wedding was a ton of fun, and I do want to say, though, we found out who the fun people are in MVP. I already knew it. You may not, but it's Sean and myself, and we're the only ones who went out there and danced. I mean, outside of Mark.
Sean gave me enough shit for that on the onside kick.
Mark was obviously having to do his rounds with people, but he was out there at some point. But Ricky and Dave, two lame ass bumps on a log, sat outside, wouldn't even come in.
I did the Macarena. I did the Macarena, guys. What do you want from me? I'm doing it right now.
Yeah, it was so difficult. No, you get out there.
I don't know. I broke a sweat.
Of course you did. Of course you did. But here's the thing: is that it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. It was always nice being able to get together, especially for one of our buddies and close friends, and see him marry, the love of his life and everything. And that's really, really cool. And good for him. I hope they've had a great time.
Well, and the funniest thing from the onside kick, too, was when I was talking to Sean about it, he said, I danced with a girl. So that's what Sean was really proud of at the wedding, that he got to dance with a girl.
As opposed to a man that, he probably wouldn't have been as excited about.
No, he wouldn't have. He liked dancing with a girl, but we're gonna get right into it. We're continuing our preview, and everyone's like, come on, guys, get to what you're here for. Preview the Big Ten.
I think they enjoyed that.
I hope you did. I mean, I had a great time at the wedding, so I hope you had a great time listening to us talk about the wedding, because I think if I could go back to it, I would. I looked damn good in that suit.
You won't see Ricky ever dress up anywhere near what he wore that night. He actually had to wear real clothes.
Yeah, no, I had to have the vest and a tie, and the only thing I didn't like about the tie was that it was a clip-on, but that's what they give you.
That's the type of tie that Ricky Widmer would wear.
That's what they give you. But I had the nice tux jacket on and pants, but it was nice to wear an actual tux. But we're going to get into, this is a preview, Brandon, that everyone's been asking for. And this is in the comment section. When do you get into the Big
Rutgers?
Ten? When do you get into
Rutgers?
No, the Big Ten exclusively. When do you get into the Big Ten? I'm like, hold your horses. We got to get to the SEC first. But we're finally here, the Big Ten. And we're going to do the Big Ten East first. We'll do the West next week before we move on to the Pac-12. And we're right. We're going to start with the bottom feeders of the conference to start off, the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. And I think this one's an easy place to go because, as the Drake song goes, and I always quote it, you got to start from the bottom before you can get here. And we're going to start at the bottom here. This is a team that in, 3 years has only won 4 conference games. They didn't win a single Big Ten conference game last year. And I don't know, looking at the schedule, I don't think they are going to win a game this year in the conference. This is a team that is at the bottom, and they got to start winning somehow, some way.
So I'm not going to exactly quote Brad Pitt in Moneyball, but it went something, paraphrasing, it went something along the lines of, here's the good teams, here's the bad teams, here's the bottom, here's a pile of shit,
and then there's
us. And that's Rutgers. That's Rutgers. I mean, they are not good. They have not been good since coming over to the Big Ten. They have really struggled. And the stat that you said, and just winning 4 conference games is not good at all. And 0-9, last year, and 2-10 overall, 0-9 being in the conference. You take a look at their schedule from last year, and you look at some of the games. Iowa was close. They lost by a touchdown. Minnesota was close. They lost by 2 points, 34-32. Indiana was close. They lost 33-27. Those are games that I think that if we look again for this year, those are games that maybe they could win one of them. Mm-hmm. Maybe they could win one of those. And that's where I kind of wanted to start with Rutgers, is their number one key for me is you have to win one conference game this year. You have to win one conference game this year. And if you do that, you've already done better than last year. That's what I think. And I know their fans are probably hoping for much more than one conference game. I would obviously be hoping for much more than one conference win as well. But I think that you have to, when you're a team like Rutgers, you're not going to go from the worst to boom, putting yourself on the map. It's just not going to happen. There's a lot of progress that goes there, just like you don't get out of college and go right to being a CEO. Doesn't happen.
Gotta work your way up.
Doesn't happen unless you're the CEO of yourself and your own business and your own company that you start. It's just usually not going to happen though. Well, not right away. But that's what I'm saying though, is that if they get just that one conference win, it's still a win. It's still a win for you as your program, because you didn't have that last year.
Well, and the thing is, the side of the ball I look at is offense, and because that's who I am. I know I'm an offensive-minded guy, and this is a team that wasn't just last nationally when it came to total offense. They were next to last in scoring. So that means you weren't moving the ball, and you weren't putting points up on the board. And I know that they have quarterback right now who is going to be a junior. They've got Gino Regsigno, and then they also have a true freshman, though, Jonathan Lewis. They got to figure out which one of those two is going to be the starter. And the reason why I say that is you got new offensive coordinator in town, and usually I go, okay, new offensive coordinator, and push it off, but this is a big name. Jerry Kill, who used to be the head coach of the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who was the Big Ten Coach of the Year in 2014. I almost said 2024. That was in the future, but 2014. And this is a big name as your offensive coordinator, and his task is to basically take this offense that was, like I said, dead last in total offense, next to last in scoring. And I look at the last 5 games that Gio started for them. Illinois beat them 24-7. He only had 120 yards in that game, 1 for 1. The best game he played was when they lost by 2 to Minnesota, 220 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 INTs. I know there were games where he didn't have interceptions, but 2 of those games he didn't get a score. If this team, basically very simple, if you can move the ball on offense and get some points out of drives, that will help you a little bit more. Because like you said, I look at some of these games, especially that he started, 2 of them, in example, Minnesota, you lose by 2. You move the ball a little bit further, get in field goal range, you maybe get a field goal to win by 1. Indiana, 33-27, you move the ball a little bit more, you get one more score, you're in that game, and you win by a point. So there were some games where they were in it and could have won it in the conference, but to me it all starts with that offense, because if they can't move the ball and they can't put points up on the board, it's going to be a long season for the Scarlet Knights.
I think that you're right, Ricky, obviously. No one's going to disagree with that. And I think that, one of the things is too, for Rutgers, it's being able to find out who that quarterback's going to be. Mm-hmm. Now they've kind of got a group of 3 there. They've got Giovanni Resigno, the veteran Kyle Bolin, who's a transfer coming over from Louisville because he saw he wasn't going to play there with Lamar Jackson. Mm-hmm. And then the third guy is Jonathan Lewis, a guy with a ton of upside. And they're looking for Lewis to end up being the guy, and who could be the guy who could be there then for a couple of years and end up transforming this offense into something that it's not right now, and that's a consistent scoring threat. And I think that that's the big key, is that for Rutgers, they just need to continue. You obviously have to be in the present, but you have to continue to look for the future and look to build for the future. And that's one of those is going to come with recruiting. But I think that if Lewis can turn out to be something good for them, I think that'll be something really huge. And it's always important, especially in college football, be able to build around that quarterback that you have and that will, I think, help everything else. That will help the running game. That will help the offensive line. That will help a lot of things. But I think another thing, too, at least for Rutgers, is the fact that they were unable to really score in the red zone either. I think that's one of their things. They were worst in the country inside the 20. They scored just 17 of 25 times. They lost to Minnesota by 2, like I said. They missed a field goal. They lost to Iowa 14-7, and they were 1 of 4 in the red zone. A couple more field goals, a touchdown. I think that, they really could have looked a lot better than 2-10, and they could have looked a lot better than 0-9 in the conference, but it's capitalizing on those scores. It's so nice to be able to have a good drive and get down there, but it's so disheartening when you have to put 3 up on the board, or you don't even get 3.
You get 0.
That's disheartening. And then your defense to come out there and be out there even longer, and they're going to labor, and the other team does score. That's what's awful. That's what's really demoralizing, disheartening for your defense, and then for your offense, too, to then have to come back out and try and put something together, especially if they come back out and that they have a drive that doesn't go anywhere. That's what really hurts them. So Rutgers has a long way to go. They have a long way to go, I think, but they're not too far off. They have a long way to go from being really successful, but they're not too far off from, I think, being a team that is 4-8. Being a team that is not that bad.
Well, if you get 4-8 to me, that's like going undefeated for Rutgers.
You know what?
You're
I
ecstatic
think you
with
agree.
4 wins.
I think you're right. I would agree with that. They certainly need to just move in the right direction. They need to see that there's progress in the right direction. If they do that, maybe the next year it's 5-7. Well, maybe the next year it's 5-8, 6-7, whatever.
I'll give you the 4 games. The 4 games they have to win to hit that 4 mark. You ready for them? Eastern Michigan and Morgan State. You got to win those 2.
Yes.
You lose either of those, you're not getting to the 4. The other 2, at Illinois, home against Purdue. I'll throw 1 in there for good measure at Indiana as well. The only reason why I say maybe at Indiana is Indiana's going to need, of course, it's a guy coming up from the defensive coordinator ranks and not coming in, but they're going to have new coach Tom Allen. So they might have some, I know it's late in the season, but they might have some, we're not really gelling this season with the first-year head coach. We don't know what's going to happen. But Eastern Michigan, Morgan State, Illinois, Purdue, if they can win all 4 of those games, those are the games I look at because you're not going to beat Penn State. You're not going to beat Michigan. You're not going to beat Ohio State. And I'm looking at a stat here that they have been shut out and are a combined 224-0 against Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Michigan State. Have never scored a point against those 4 teams. I don't think that might change because Michigan State, they might be a one to give up some points this season, maybe a field goal to this Rutgers team. The other 3 are going to shut them out. Michigan will shut you out. Penn State, those are both on the road. Yeah, you get Ohio State at home. Ohio State's pretty damn good. They'll shut you out as well. It doesn't help that you have Nebraska on the road. You have that Indiana game, which is on the road. The schedule is not impossible to get to that 4 wins. I just think anything past that 4 wins, though, is going to be hard because we didn't even mention who they opened the season against at home is the Washington Huskies, who are a pretty damn good football team in their own right.
They are, and Ricky, those are the exact teams that I was looking at too, and that's exactly who I was going to say. They need to win those 2 non-conference games that they have early in the season, and then they need to be able to win against Illinois and Purdue because I don't see them being able to really have too much of a chance against anybody else. That Washington game is going to be a tough game. Nebraska, Ohio State. Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, like you said, they're no contest. That most of us would say. And Michigan, did I say Ohio State, Michigan? Yeah. Maryland, Indiana. Michigan State's going to be better than last year. They've got to be. I think that it does come down to those 4 games, and truly, if they don't win those, they're not going to. I don't see them winning anything else outside of that. I don't. Their defense has to be so much better. Their run defense has to be so much better. In games against Michigan and Ohio State, Michigan and Ohio State combined to get 891 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground. That's terrible.
Well, I mean, I even look at the game that I'm looking at, that out of those four that I don't think they are going to win. I mean, you look at it this way, where Foster, the running back for Illinois, that's the game I'm looking at, he scored twice in that game, once on the ground and once through the air, I believe. You also had, that was the game where Chance Couch was the quarterback in that game, who is going to be, it's going to be either him or Jeff George Jr., who are going to be fighting for that starting spot, and we're going to get to Illinois next week. However, that's the game I look at out of the four, and I go, well, Illinois beat you last year, and it was at home. This time you get them on the road, and I know this is going to be a different Illinois team than we saw last year. Some pieces obviously leaving, and some questions there with Lovie Smith's second year, but if you were to ask me, Ricky, this Rutgers team, give me a percentage that they get to those 4 wins, I give you about 30%, because really this team, for sure, I only see 2 wins on the docket. Eastern Michigan and Morgan State. I think that Purdue's going to be better than they were last year, and I think that right now, if you told me to pick a winner in that one, I'd pick Purdue as well. I'm just not confident that Rutgers can, pound for pound, go up against any team in this division and get a win. Now, that's not saying they're not going to, because as we know, it's kind of an any given Saturday type of situation. They could walk into Illinois and get the win. They could walk in to that game against Purdue and get the win. Hell, they could walk in, like I said, to Indiana and get a win late in the season. But that's putting a lot of chance to it, a lot of chance and a lot of luck to try to win 1 or 2. Like, just talking about 2, I kind of think like, well, let's get 1 first, then we can focus on 2, because they just got to win 1 conference game just to be better than last year.
So, Ricky, one thing I want to point out too is the fact that to give Rutgers some credit, because we've kind of been beating up on them here, as everyone has.
And I don't mean to beat a dead horse,
as everyone has since they got to the Big Ten. But I think that some things to mention though are the fact that they've got Jawan Harris returning at wide receiver. They've got Janarian Grant coming back from an ankle injury. He's going to be back this year. He was good for a couple of games last year, but then they lost him for the rest of the season due to that ankle injury. He's back this year. He's a great return man. He's very dangerous in the return game. And, you just need some of those spark plugs to return. And they've got those guys. So at least whoever's going to be a quarterback, whether it be Bolin, whether it be Lewis, whoever it may be, to be able to have some constant and consistent targets to be able to throw to, and some guys who've been there, who know that system, and who can help them take some pressure off of those guys, it's huge. And then Robert Martin returns at tailback. He had 625 yards, 2 touchdowns last year. That's not very good. But if he can up those numbers, get to 800-some yards, 800, 900, get to 5-6 touchdowns, just more production from those areas. And they've got, I think they'll do that because I think they have a solid front line. They've got 3 starters returning there, and I think that that's important. The front line, especially for a offense and a team like this one, a building team. I mean, clearly building towards the future, trying to, is that they need to be able to take pressure off that quarterback, give that quarterback, whoever it is, time to throw, open up some holes for those running backs so they're not being stuffed every time. That's important. So that offensive line, to be able to have some returning guys, some returning starters, it's going to be huge. And I think if they're going to be successful, that's where one of the things offensively, that's where it's going to start. And then defensively, you need to be able to stop the run, stop teams on third down, and be able to do all of that. And
get your offense back onto the field.
And get your offense back onto the field. And another thing, an interesting stat, I've kind of thrown out a lot of interesting stats for a couple of different teams. The first quarter scoring, opponents against Rutgers scored 154 points in the first quarter. Rutgers, 27 points in the first quarter. That's it. Only 27 points.
That's what you get when you finish next to last in scoring, and that's, to me, the biggest point. And the last thing I want to make as my kind of biggest key for this season for Rutgers is it comes down to the offense. Like I said, when you rank last in total offense and next to last in scoring, you're not going to win many football games, and it was apparent last season with only 2 wins in the non-conference, not even winning a single conference game. So to me, the big 2 goals that I would say is I wouldn't even put a win marker on it. I would just say, well, the AD will, and that's his job. But for me as a fan, I wouldn't even put a win marker on it. I would say at the end of the year, it is a successful year to me if, and this is why I kind of lean towards Jordan Lewis, because I kind of think of the Miami preview where we had a similar situation. This one has 3, Miami had 2. We used the debate of, do you go with the proven guy from last year or the new guy from this year that hasn't played a single snap in college football? And we kind of had a debate. I was kind of feeling the guy from last year. You were feeling the new guy. This year, because Rutgers is in a completely different situation than Miami is. Miami has maybe national title, maybe some playoff hopes to them. Rutgers is nowhere near that. We're not going to get that twisted. So that's why, to me, I say, hey, you're fast-tracking this guy for the spot. Go ahead and start him. And at the end of the year, if I see an improvement in moving the ball down the field, we move up in total offense, we get on the board a little bit more, and we move up in scoring, then I look at it and go, you know what? Kill came in this year. This guy was a true freshman. He'll be a sophomore next year. We got better. It got better. And we were able to look forward to the future. That, to me, would be a successful season for Rutgers in 2017.
I would agree with you. I think that if I'm a Rutgers fan, the one thing I'm going to be looking for is, did you win a conference game? Mm-hmm. If you won a conference game, I'm pretty pleased. That's what I would be looking for. That's what I'd be looking for, because that would at least show that you're moving in the right direction.
Well, this is where we turn the conversation on to you guys. Let us know down below in the comment section. What do you guys think? What's the biggest key for Rutgers this season? Will Rutgers win a conference game? Because that's the question that we're finally going to ask in a preview is, can a team win a conference game this year? Let us know down below in the comment section.